So I'm not joking. I had 4 videos prepared on early reviews of The Bride. And by the time I was working on the video for the 4th time, I was like, you know what? Just see the film. And I did. And it was not very good. And I am shocked because I looked at the trailer after seeing the film and I was like, because my memories of seeing the trailer were all positive. I was like, wow, this looks really good. I only had a few problems. So I give the trailer an 8 out of 10. And most of the things in the trailer are in the film, so they weren't lying. But I think the trailers were radically misleading. So without spoiling the film, what does happen and what does not happen? So yes, Bale and Buckley are central to the story. However, there's a lot of twists. There's a lot of plot. There's a lot of plot in this film. And after a while, aside from having too many characters, too many plot threads, it just was not very well done. So there are some scenes that are extremely beautiful, great costume design, and clearly Maggie Gyllenhaal has a lot of skill. However, a lot of the film, probably most of the film, is really disjointed. I mean, things just happen and more things happen and more things happen, and that's fine. You can do a film like that. But despite a lot of like energy on the surface, yeah, there's really not much pushing this film. Especially when you dig deeper, it just gets more worse the more you think about it. Now, to try to be fair, it's like a scale, right? Like Scream 7, I don't think was a very good film. And the ending was really bad. This one, I don't think it ever really started. It just feels radically disjointed in too many places. And a lot of other critics are praising the performances. I can join them. I do think Christian Bale is the best by far because he gives so much to his physical performance. And I don't want to go down the woke rabbit hole, but really he's just a vessel for the female characters, which is fine. Okay, that's the way they're doing it. The problem is, and it's a clever idea. I grant it's a clever idea what they do with the Bride of Frankenstein. And that's why it's called The Bride. No, I'm not of Frankenstein. I'm just the bride. It's, she's not much of a character, which is fine. She could be mythic. There's not much to her, but I just didn't feel too much power. Like the basic story itself is kind of pointless. So it's this fantasy version of American history where Frankenstein, as the name shows, gets a bride because this woman is killed as a part of a mob conspiracy. And so a lot of the film is the mob conspiracy, these detectives chasing them, and like this weird revolutionary fervor that the bride sets off. And it's just very meh. And again, you could do films however you please, but this film just literally tells you, and it does so in a really annoying way, what it's about. Like the actress literally says in one scene, I'm not joking, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, that now the monsters get to speak. Okay, well, that's an old trope, that in horror movies, the monsters are actually good people. They're not the bad guys, right? The villain is not really that much of a villain. Like, the best one is, of course, Jason Voorhees, right? When you really think about it, Jason is not really a bad guy. He's just going around killing people because he's angry. If you stay out of his way, he won't kill you. But if you're in his way, he'll kill you. So he's just there. You know, Jason has some motivation, especially in the later films. It's not good, but he has some motivation. But for the most part, he's just pure anger. It's what he is. So the films can frame him positively or negatively, whichever the way they go. Okay, let's get back to The Bride. This isn't even at the Friday level, right? This is kind of just like, she's real angry because she's a woman and she's rebelling against the system. Okay. All right, that's the theme. But what about the actual drama? And it's just pretty stale. Now, that said, there are stunning things. There are some stunning images, some interesting ideas. Some scenes have a lot of verve and power. They clearly have spent the budget on the production, so they're very careful with that. And for the budget, it does look pretty good in most places, but in a lot of places, it is very visually slack. It's just very meh, not much is happening. And a lot of the Joker people are working on this. And like a lot of people, I didn't think Joker was that good. But now I appreciate much more what Joker did. A lot of things that were good with Joker, this film really gets wrong. Like, to take only one thing, which most people do love, and I agree. Like, there's a scene where the Joker transforms on the staircase to music. It's a very iconic scene. Nothing like that happens in The Bride. There's no real progress for this character because it's always one note. She's rebelling against the patriarchy, against the system. Got it. And then they add some like these weird verbal tics where she can't speak properly or whatever, and you're like, okay, I guess. And I understand what they're going for, like this very Batman, Dark Knight, gothic vibe with other elements, like horror and comedy, and even a musical. And it just doesn't work very well, right? And also the dialogue is atrociously bad. It is really horribly bad. I mean, there is a scene where one of the detectives, who is like pro-feminist, says, "Hey, we're disrupting the status quo." And you're like, what? So, you think to yourself, is this meant to be laughably bad in many places? I don't know. I do think they're meant to have very creative, chaotic energy. It's just like, I just didn't particularly care. I mean, the only interesting character is the Bale character, and most of the time, he's not very active. But, you know, like, let me give you an example. Like, one of the best scenes is when Bale as Frankenstein, or Frankenstein's monster, to be more precise, is looking at himself performing. It's a very weird, interesting scene. And there are several scenes like that. But a huge amount of this movie is just plotting, plot line after plot line after plot line, and characters don't feel like they're characters. They're just mouthing off really rote political points. And the allegory is just so obvious, right? It's like, okay, I get it. And it's just a waste of talent because you have very talented performers, but really they're not, the performances are really erratic. Like, am I convinced that this is good acting? Yes, but the characters are just so one note that we're like, okay, that one's like sympathetic antagonist. This one is a good heroine. That one is like a stock gangster. It's all very stock. It does have a certain anarchic flair, which does come out in a few scenes, which are good. But yeah, there's really nothing really special here. It just feels like it's cobbled together from certain pieces of other films. But, and again, this is like Quentin Tarantino, right? Sometimes when that's done, it's well done, it's very powerful, like Inglourious Basterds. But sometimes it's done. I know I'm going to hate, I'm going to get hatred for this. I would even include Kill Bill. Kill Bill does have a lot of great scenes. But to me, ultimately, it feels like decline. Like, Quentin can do the style, right? Hateful Eight, Kill Bill, Death Proof, and a lot of people hate Death Proof. But the point would be, even those films have their fans. But to me, that's inferior Tarantino. And that's what this feels like. It feels like very inferior Tarantino that has a lot of stuff, it has a lot of sex, it has a lot of violence, has a lot of dialogue, but it's just borrowing, feverishly through many other better films, and they're just being squished together. No rhyme or reason. There's no real structure. There's just like, more, yes, more intense. And after about 30 minutes in, you're like, okay, you got to really do something really creative to keep going here, and they don't. So I don't think anyone's going to guess the ending to this plot, but no one's going to care either. It's just what it is. It's a very flashy, plotting, political statement, and not much else. And it's a little too sincere. It's better to just try to be more complicated or hide these things, but here it's just full frontal. The bride is going to get her revenge on evil men. And you're like, okay. Anything else? Well, there's more plot, but really there's nothing else. So this is pretty radically disappointing because the costumes, the trailers, like Christian Bale's makeup. Okay, the makeup artist should definitely get an Oscar. Again, once again, Christian Bale should get an Oscar, but and I don't blame the actors. The blame has to go to Maggie. Like, she made the script, so it just feels like she needed a better editor and some co-writers to really tell her this isn't a good idea. This dialogue needs a lot more improvement. But for a first effort, this is a really good film. However, judged against most films, it's still severely lacking. It really is, which is a shame because I do like Maggie, and she definitely has a good eye for many scenes. So there's definitely a lot of scenes that are very good. But overall, the movie as a whole was just kind of pathetic and really too lame and stupid. So I can't say it's a good film. I can't say it's one of the worst things I've ever seen. But it is very close to Scream. It is really dangerously close to Scream 7 territory. So, it's not Madame Web bad, but it wasn't very good. It wasn't very good. It had a lot of potential, so it feels sad. And I don't want people not to see it because there were good scenes. So you have to be patient. You have to be really patient with this film, but you'll get to some really great scenes. But after those scenes happen, you will be like, wow, this is really boring. So I'm going to be forced to give this, I think a 6 out of 10 is fair. So was it bad? Yeah. Was it terrible? Well, not terrible, but it could have been a whole lot better. So it's above average in many ways, but it never quite reaches greatness, unfortunately.